working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. You're watching. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila and Cambodia. Hello, Crystal.
Hello, Alma. I'm Crystal Ann Ballesteros from your EBC Cambodia Bureau, bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. Overseas Filipino worker Elmer Presa was able to exit the crisis-hit Afghanistan together with his fellow nationals after getting permission from the Taliban.
The quarantine classification in the National Capital Region, or NCR, and the provinces of Laguna and Bataan has been downgraded from Enhanced Community Quarantine, or ECQ, to Modified ECQ. Malacanang announced Thursday.
A scandal-plagued Malaysian party looked set to regain the country's leadership that it lost at landmark elections 3 years ago after the last prime minister resigned this week.
The Bank of Thailand plans to test its retail digital currency for the public in the second quarter of 2022 as an alternative payment option, an assistant governor said on Thursday.
First, overseas Filipino worker Elmer Presa was able to exit the crisis-hit Afghanistan together with his fellow nationals after getting permission from the Taliban themselves. In a Facebook status on Thursday, Presa posted a photo of him and some gun-wielding men, apparently Taliban fighters, for allowing them to enter Kabul's airport. Thank you all for the permissions to get inside the HKIA, or Hamid Karzai International Airport, Kabul, Afghanistan, he wrote. Presa and the other Filipinos were able to hitch a ride on a U.S. military plane to Doha, Qatar. In a radio interview, he shared that Taliban fighters are now manning the checkpoints around the Afghan capital's airport. Presa said his group was actually already inside the airport thanks to their boss who facilitated their access, but some of them were still stranded at the Swedish and U.S. embassies in Kabul, where no local drivers dared to go after the hardline Islamist group seized Kabul. He shared that they don't have drivers anymore who dared to fetch them, so he asked his boss to allow him, so he gave the permission. So he said he went inside and asked the Taliban, because they are the ones conducting the checkpoints. There were many of them outside, he said. Presa, recalling their conversation, told the Taliban fighters that he will be fetching some of his fellow nationals and was given the green light. He said he was actually moving freely, so he was able to retrieve them. Presa said he was able to get 3 Filipinos just in time for a Wednesday flight at the HKIA aboard a US C-17 military plane. In their language, he said, "I have Filipino friends. Can I get them?" And they allowed me. Actually, we had no problem with them, he said. Opportunity was given to me, so I took it. Presa and his group are now in Doha, Qatar. On Wednesday, the Department of Foreign Affairs also attempted to send 2 chartered flights to Kabul, but both were unsuccessful after the cancellation of all commercial flights in the capital.
Meanwhile, COVID cases in Thailand top 1 million. The details are from Veronica Carino joining us live. Hi, Veronica.
Yes, hello, Crystal. Good afternoon. Thailand surpassed 1 million mark of COVID-19 cases since the pandemic started last year. As of today, there are 19,851 new cases and 240 fatalities, according to the Public Health Ministry. There were 19,526 cases in the general population and 325 cases among inmates in prison. In the last 24 hours, 20,478 COVID-19 patients have recovered and have been released from hospitals. There have been 1,009,710 COVID-19 cases since the pandemic began early last year, with 795,805 of them recovering. The death toll from the third wave was 8,732 and 8,826 since the pandemic began early last year. In a related news, according to the Department of Medical Sciences, combining Sinovac and AstraZeneca vaccines has shown high efficacy in dealing with Delta variant of the coronavirus. Dr. Supakit Sirilak, the department's chief, stated yesterday that a Sinovac and AstraZeneca combination was the best option under the current circumstances of accelerating immunity. He referred to laboratory test results from a study conducted in collaboration with Sirilak Hospital. Dr. Supakit stated that blood samples from 125 participants aged 18 to 60 years who received a Sinovac shot and then an AstraZeneca jab revealed a quantitative level of body immunity of 716 compared to 117 of a full course of Sinovac and 207 of 2 AstraZeneca shots. The laboratory test shows that the combination of Sinovac and AstraZeneca is correct. However, the test has not yet answered our question about the duration of efficacy, so more research is required to determine when we should receive the booster dose, he stated. He insisted that mixing vaccines resulted in a higher level of antibody, as suggested by the National Communicable Disease Board, but that less time was spent creating the antibody. The second dose of AstraZeneca will be administered 3 weeks after the first Sinovac shot. After receiving both doses, the immunity level will be increased in just 2 weeks. Typically, the Ministry of Public Health recommends waiting 8 to 12 weeks before receiving the second shot of AstraZeneca. The side effects of the combined vaccine are nothing to be concerned about because they are no different than getting the AstraZeneca vaccine, he said. He also stated that the department will collect information on people who received the Pfizer vaccine for further study, with the result expected in about a month. Pfizer's mRNA-based vaccine has been administered to at least 300,000 people. The department intends to conduct a study of antibody levels when the vaccine is administered through the skin rather than into the muscle, as it is currently done. It claims that if a small amount of vaccine can be administered through the skin, 4 to 5 times as much vaccine can be administered to more people. If the results are the same, they may be a significant change in the vaccine management. This update is from Bangkok Post. Back to you, Crystal.
Thank you for your update, Veronica, and please stay safe there.
Thank you, likewise, and happy Friday. Reporting live from Thailand, I am Veronica Carino, and we live in interesting times.
Now, rules will be relaxed for those fully vaccinated individuals in states that are under phase 1 of the National Recovery Plan in Malaysia. Let's find out more from Alfred Valdez. Hi, Alfred.
Hi, Crystal. Good afternoon. In Malaysia, the fully vaccinated individual in states that are under phase 1 of the National Recovery Plan will be allowed to dine in at eateries, go camping, engage in individual and non-contact exports outdoor, as well as go to the night market starting today, August 20. Caretaker Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin said this will be among several relaxation of standard operating procedures under the National Recovery Plan agreed upon at the National Security Council meeting on Thursday, August 19, after Malaysia reached the threshold of having 50% of its adult population fully vaccinated. For dine-in activities, Muhyiddin urged eatery operators to provide more dining space outside the premises for better ventilation and also to ensure customers show their COVID-19 digital vaccination certificate to prove that they have completed their course of immunization. Fully vaccinated parents who wish to take their children who are below 17 years old of age to dine in at eateries are also allowed to do so, provided that they follow SOP. Sport, recreation, and leisure activities without physical contact and non-group activities outdoors are also permitted to stay under Phase 1 of the National Recovery Plan and beyond in the same district. From 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., these activities are allowed as long as they are done outdoors in open and semi-open spaces and physical distancing is adhered to. Permitted activities are jogging, exercise, tai chi, cycling, skateboard, fishing, equestrian, archery, climbing, tennis, singles, badminton, singles, golf, motoring, and the like. Permitted activities also include picnics and camping. Participation of children aged 17 and under is allowed with strict adherence to SOP. He added that the dine-in activities at restaurants or cafes on clubhouse premises are also permitted following the same guidelines as others dining establishment. Meanwhile, the operation of changing rooms and showers on clubhouse premises is still not permitted. Muhyiddin said that the night market and weekend market operations are also permitted, with the relevant enforcement authorities as well as premises owner urged to ensure that the customers show their digital certificate of COVID-19 vaccination. All the facilities that announced today will come into effect on Friday, August 20. Further details will be released by the NSC soon. Muhyiddin said the new relaxations were added after the NSC took into account that the complete vaccination rate of the adult population nationwide has now exceeded 50% earlier than target of August 31st. Apart from that, the meeting also took note of the initial positive developments from the national COVID-19 immunization program in several states, namely Labuan, Sarawak, Ningiri Sibilan, and the Klang Valley states, Selangor, Kuala Lumpur, and Putrajaya. He added that the data collected by the health ministers also shows that so far all the state mentions have started to show a decrease in the number of cases in categories 3 to 5 when complete vaccination of the adult population 18 years and above exceeded 40%. Concurrently, data from the Crisis Preparedness Response Center showed that the situation in the emergency department of Klang Valley Hospital has also improved. Muhyiddin said the average number of patients waiting in the emergency department to be placed in wards for public hospital in the Klang Valley state had decreased, in line with the complete vaccination rate for the adult population in the Klang Valley, which has reached 73.8%. As immunization coverage increases, we will see COVID-19 cases that need to be admitted to the intensive care units to begin to show a horizontal trend, eventually decline. In this regard, the NSC special session today agreed to provide additional facilities for the social and economic sector for individuals who have received complete vaccination for the state in Phase 1 of the NRP. Muhyiddin, however, emphasized that every minister and agency overseeing the facilities as well as premises owners must be fully responsible for the implementation of the facilities provided to ensure that it's done in accordance with the rules and guidelines. If there's an infection of the premises, the health ministry will immediately take the appropriate measures, including conducting a risk assessment. According to him, the possibility of immediate closing of the premises of areas involved is also not ruled out, and neither is the issuance of compound notices to parties found to be violating the SOPs. Muhyiddin said the onus is on citizens who have received complete vaccination to make the national and prudent risk assessment in the face of the COVID-19 threat, adding that keeping safe in a collective responsibility. Back to you, Crystal.
Thank you so much for the update, Alfred. And please, more news. Please keep us updated and stay safe there.
You too. Live reporting from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. This is Alfred Balmes. We live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, the quarantine classification in the National Capital Region and the provinces of Laguna and Bataan has been downgraded from enhanced community quarantine or ECQ to modified ECQ. Malacanang announced this yesterday, this after President Duterte, upon the recommendation of the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases, approved the latest quarantine status in Metro Manila, Laguna, and Bataan, according to a presidential spokesperson, Harry Roque. Now, these latest classifications are without prejudice to the strict implementation of granular lockdown, said Roque, also acting as the IATF-EID spokesperson in a press statement. Now, Secretary Roque said Metro Manila will be placed under MECQ from August 21 to 31. Bataan, on the other hand, will be under MECQ from August 23 to 31. Metro Manila, Laguna, and Bataan were initially placed under ECQ, the strictest form of community quarantine due to the spike in COVID-19 infections. Secretary Roque stressed that despite the de-escalation of quarantine level, religious gatherings should remain virtual in Metro Manila, Laguna, and Bataan. He added that indoor and al fresco dine-in services, as well as personal care services such as beauty salons, beauty parlors, barbershops, and all nail spas should remain prohibited. And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. We'll be right back.
Magtanim ay di biro at sa pag-aalaga ng mais, walang kakornihan dito dahil ang kita ay panalo. Iisa-isahin natin ang ilang pwedeng lutuin. Ganon din ang iba pang produkto mula sa buhok at balat ng mais. Ako po si Robin Padilla. At ito po ang ulad, kaagapay sa hanap buhay. Sa hanap buhay.
Impormasyong mahalaga sa taong bayan. Patas na pagbabalita. Papakinggan ang magkabilang panig. Lilinawin ang mga issue at kaagad na ihahatid ng objektibo. Mata ng Agila. Tumadagit ng pinakasariwang pangyayari, hindi lamang sa loob ng bansa, kundi sa iba't ibang panig ng daigdig. Mula sa Eagle News Teams at sa tulong ng makabagong teknolohiya, tiyak na makakalap kaagad ang katotohanan. Para sa mas matalas, malinaw at malalimang pagbabalita. Ito ang mas pinatalas na Mata ng Agila. Inihahatid ng veteranong broadcast journalist na si Eli Saludar. Kasama si Binibining Pilipinas Intercontinental 2019, Emma Tiglao. At pinangungunahan ng batikang mamamahayag ng bansa, Vic De Leon Lima. Mata ng Agila, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 6 hanggang alas 8 ng gabi. Dito sa Net 25.
Welcome back to the program. Going back to Malaysia, as 3 people were killed and 4 others are missing after flood waters swept down a mountain in northern Malaysia and surged through villages, authorities said Thursday. Emergency workers said properties in the 2 affected districts suffered severe damage while some people were left trapped inside their houses. Local NGOs said clearing of forests and mining in the environmentally sensitive area could have played a role. But a senior official has denied that logging caused the floods, instead blaming the intensity of the downpours. Flash floods are common in tropical Malaysia. But scientists say climate change increases the risk and intensity of flooding from extreme rainfall because a warmer atmosphere holds more water.
Other news, the Philippine Navy has successfully demonstrated communications, detection, and interoperability capabilities during this year's Southeast Asia Cooperation and Training, or CCAT. The exercise scenarios for the Philippine Navy happened on August 15 and 17th, beginning in the northern seas of Palawan, going down along the east coast of Puerto Princesa in the Sulu Sea. Naval Forces West Public Affairs Office Chief Lieutenant Mark Louis Ramos said in a statement Thursday night. Participating Philippine Navy units included the brand new missile frigate BRP Antonio Luna and the patrol craft BRP Nestor Reynoso, or PC-380, and the AW-109 helicopter and an Islander aircraft, all of which are assigned to the NFW. The scenarios exercise the Philippine Navy's air, surface, and ground communication capabilities, establish new concepts and framework in a combined interagency C4ISR. C4ISR stands for Command, Control, Communications, Computers, Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance. The CCAT, which started last August 10 in Singapore, will formally end today. It was launched by the U.S. Navy and 20 other partner nations, including the Philippines.
Health Secretary Francisco Duque III this week called the Commission on Audit's report on deficiencies in the Department of Health or DOH of 67.32 billion pesos allocation for the COVID-19 pandemic response as unfair and unjust, saying the issue damaged the dignity of the agency and its workers. During a House hearing on the Commission on Audit's report, Duque said he and other health officials have been losing sleep as Commission on Audit's 2020 audit report regarding the supposed deficiencies in managing the pandemic funds brought down the agency's morale. Let's take a look back.
Kaya nga nahihirapan kami precisely because we have to attend. This is not, I think COA should also consider that we're not operating under normal circumstances. We're operating under a state of public health emergency. Winarat na ninyo kami. Winarat na ninyo ang dangal ng DOH. Winarat ninyo ang lahat ng mga kasama ko dito. Hindi kami makaharap sa mga tao dahil lahat, ang dami-daming sinasabi, ang dami-daming paratang. Wala pa rin akong tulog. Ilang gabi na po ito. Kasi this is really unfair, unjust. That this judgment has been handed down clearly without giving the DOH the full 60 days within which we should have given our rejoinder and reported on the actions onto their recommendations. So masakit po talaga sa amin ito dahil kami ho ang pangunahing ahensya na humaharap tumutugon sa panahon na ito. Sabi ko nga sa inyo, nagkasakit na ang mga tao ko. Nag-isolate, nag-quarantine, may mga namatay na. Por Diyos, por Santo, maawa naman kayo. Kayo nga ang pumunta rito at kayo ang gumawa. I speak in behalf of my people in the department. Mahirap po talaga itong nangyayari na ito na winarat na ang imahe ng Department of Health.
That said, there are a lot of limitations in doing pre-audit as well. Personnel limitations is, just one of the problems that we encounter. And Mr. Chair, if I may, I just would like to clarify that hindi po kami nagre-release sa media ng mga adverse audit findings or so. We do not. In fact, in my almost 7 years in the Commission, I think I have issued only not more than 10 press releases the entire time. And none of them had to do with telling media the audit findings, except I think twice for performance audit. All the others were clarifications. And in fact, there was one we issued with respect to the DOH audit report. where we said that wala namang findings doon that money was lost due to corruption. No, we have to mention what exactly happened to the budget as allocated by Congress, because that is part of our responsibility to be able to report to Congress how the budget that they authorized is actually used. So yun lang po, but we understand fully well the concerns of DOH. I think the good secretary knows that we do share the concern, not only for people in DOH but for other sectors as well. In fact, we have relaxed so many regulations in order to address the needs dito sa pandemic na to, no? So we're not close to that. But of course, we still have our duty at the same time to ensure that funds are actually accounted for.
The congressional inquiry was called on orders of Speaker Lord Alan Velasco to clarify the adverse audit observations that COA reported in its 2020 annual audit report for the DOH. In the 2020 DOH annual audit report, state auditors observed that the DOH had mismanaged at least 67.32 billion pesos in fund allocated by government to combat the public health crisis triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Meanwhile, Malacanang yesterday advised the public to stay cool and await the final report, as government agencies still have the chance to explain the deficiencies cited by the Commission on Audit in its 2020 audit report. Here's presidential spokesperson Harry Roque.
Findings.
Well, narinig nyo naman po ang reaksyon ng Presidente. Unang-una sa kanyang karanasan po, yung mga initial observation, nasasagot po yan ng mga ahensya. Sa karanasan nga ng Presidente, 2 beses pa siya dumulog sa hukuman, no, para i-correct yung maling conclusion or observation ng COA. Sa ngayon po, preliminary pa lang po yan. Magsusumito ng komento, pagkatapos po magkakaroon ng final report ang COA. Doon sa final report po, yan ang po pwedeng magamit na ebidensya sa hukuman, no? Pero hindi lang po yan ang hihinging ebidensya ng hukuman, isa lang po yan. Kinakailangan meron pang ibang mga testigo para mapatunayan kung meron nga pong paglabag doon sa ating batas on graft and corruption. So sa ngayon po, ang aking advice, cool muna po tayo. Dahil itong puntong ito po pwede pa pong sagutin at antayin po natin ang final reports.
United Kingdom Ambassador James Kariuki told reporters that the humanitarian crisis in Myanmar is getting worse each day as a third wave of COVID-19 ravages the country. Let's listen in.
The humanitarian crisis in the country is getting worse each day as a third wave of COVID ravages the country. Prior to the coup, Myanmar had a strong vaccination record and was developing a COVID-19 plan. Now, Myanmar's health system is barely functioning. Unacceptable attacks on hospitals, doctors and nurses continue, and only 3% of the population are vaccinated. The UK is calling for an immediate and sustained humanitarian pause to allow vaccines to get in to all in need, and for medical and humanitarian staff to work without fear or attack. We will work with Council members and international partners, including Gavi, the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunisation, and the UN, to ensure the people of Myanmar get access to vaccines in an equitable way, regardless of politics, ethnicity, or religion.
The health crisis has been aggravated by a lack of formal medical care, as many hospitals have been emptied of staff joining nationwide strikes against the junta. Patients are also reluctant to go to military-run hospitals, creating long lines for oxygen and medical supplies in pharmacies across Yangon. Council members heard from Special Envoy on Myanmar Christine Bergner and Acting Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator in the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, Ramesh Rahasingham.
Meanwhile, Japan will grant asylum to a footballer from Myanmar's national team who raised an anti-coup salute during a match outside Tokyo and refused to fly home, according to reports. Substitute goalkeeper Pacquiao raised the three-finger salute as the national anthem played before a World Cup qualifier against Japan in May. He then said he had decided to seek asylum in Japan because his life would be in danger if he returned to Myanmar. The Southeast Asian country has been in turmoil since the military's February 1 coup, with over 900 killed and more than 7,000 arrested in a bloody crackdown, according to a local monitoring group. The three-finger salute has frequently been used as a show of resistance by protesters during demonstrations.
Malaysia's Prime Minister and his government resign after just 17 months in office, throwing the country into fresh political turmoil as it battles a serious coronavirus outbreak. After submitting his resignation to the king, the 74-year-old took a parting shot at enemies within his coalition. Let's take a look.
Saya telah melakukan pelbagai ikhtiar hingga ke saat akhir untuk nak menyelamatkan kerajaan Perikatan Nasional, setidaknya sehingga selesai tugas menguruskan pandemik, program vaksinasi dan pemulihan ekonomi. Saudara sekalian, ikhtiar ini tidak berhasil disebabkan ada pihak yang rakus untuk merebut kuasa daripada mengutamakan nyawa dan kehidupan saudara-saudari sekalian.
He has claimed that several MPs who pulled support from his coalition, including scandal-plagued ex-leader Najib Razak, had been angered that he refused to get corruption cases against them dropped. But he has quit without a clear succession in sight.
While there may be a succession in sight, a scandal-plagued Malaysian party looks set to regain the country's leadership that it lost at landmark elections 3 years ago after the last prime minister resigned this week. Now, Ismail Sabri Yaacob, who was deputy premier in Mujahidin's coalition, has received the backing of most lawmakers. One of his supporters, MP Ahmad Maslan, said this on Twitter. The 61-year-old is a longtime member of the United Malays National Organization, or UMNO, and if his victory is confirmed, it means the party will reclaim the premiership. UMNO was the linchpin of a coalition that ruled Malaysia for 6 decades until losing power in 2018 amid a storm of corruption scandals. The party had already regained a foothold in power as part of the coalition that collapsed this week, but the former Prime Minister Mujahidin himself is from a different group. Bridget Welch, a Malaysia expert from the University of Nottingham, said people who voted for change in 2018 will not be looking favorably to his appointment, and it will be an unelected appointment. So she said you will see polarization continue. UMNO was booted out of power after becoming embroiled in a myriad of graft cases, notably the 1MDB scandal.
Also this week, dozens of protesters marched to the Royal Thai Police headquarters in Bangkok, throwing paint at the entrance in a call to end the use of excessive force against them, and demanding Premier Prayut Chan-o-cha resign over his handling of the coronavirus pandemic. Let's take a look.
การรักษารัฐนะครับใช้ความรุนแรงนะครับและเป็นพวกโทรล่านะครับประยุทธ์ออกไปประยุทธ์ออกไปที่รับใช้เหตุการณ์ไม่รับใช้ประชาชนนะคะเหตุการณ์ไม่รับใช้ประชาชน
Meanwhile, the last surviving senior Khmer Rouge leader began an appeal against his life imprisonment for his role in the genocide committed by the regime in Cambodia more than 4 decades ago. Take a look.
Accused was convicted as a senior leader of the Communist Party of Cambodia who engaged in a joint criminal enterprise which resulted in the commission of crimes against humanity directed against the civilian population of Cambodia, grave breaches of the Geneva Conventions directed against Vietnamese, and genocide against the Vietnamese.
Khmer would like to make a statement toward the end of the appeal hearing. Thank you. Also, Mr. Khmer would like to submit a request. He would like to use the bathroom frequently during the hearing. We lodged our appeal before the Supreme Court chamber, requesting the annulment of this illegal judgment.
បាទថ្ងៃនេះគឺជាថ្ងៃដ៏មានសារៈសំខាន់សម្រាប់ជនរងគ្រោះនៃរបបខ្មែរក្រហមដែលអង្គជំនុំជម្រះតុលាការកំពូលបានបើកសវនាការលើបណ្ដឹងសារទុកនៅក្នុងសំណុំរឿង 002/02 ប្រឆាំងទៅនឹងលោកខៀវសំផនដែលបានប្តឹងជំទាស់ទៅនឹងសាលក្រមដែលបានកាត់ទោសគាត់ដាក់ពន្ធនាគារអស់មួយជីវិតដោយអង្គជំនុំជម្រះសាលាដំបងពីបទឧក្រិដ្ឋកម្មប្រឆាំងនឹងមនុស្សជាតិឧក្រិដ្ឋកម្មសង្គ្រាមនិងឧក្រិដ្ឋកម្មបល្ល័ង្កពូជសាសន៍ប្រឆាំងទៅនឹងជនជាតិវៀតណាមហើយ
The brutal communist group led by brother number 1 Pol Pot left 2 million Cambodians dead from overwork, starvation, and mass executions from 1975 to 79. Former Khmer Rouge head of state Khieu Samphan, 90, is challenging his 2018 conviction for genocide against ethnic minority Vietnamese. His lawyers on Monday argued the UN-backed court had taken a selective approach to witness testimony and not given proper weight to evidence in his favor. They also said the tribunal had convicted him using legal criteria that he couldn't have known when the alleged crimes took place more than 40 years ago. Khieu Samphan was jailed alongside brother number 2 Nuon Chea for life for genocide and a litany of other crimes, including forced marriages and rapes. Nuon Chea died in 2019. The pair were previously handed life sentences by the court in 2014 for crimes against humanity over the violent forced evacuation of Phnom Penh in April 1975, when Khmer Rouge troops drove the population of the capital into rural labor camps.
Going back in the Philippines, as the Philippines Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PHIVOLCS, on Thursday reported an increase in sulfur dioxide emissions, which was more than double it recorded a day before. In an advisory, PHIVOLCS said the sulfur dioxide flux measured 15,347 tons compared to Wednesday's 7,830 tons. It said the high sulfur dioxide flux water vapor emitted in plumes, weak air movement, and solar radiation will continue to produce volcanic smog, or VOG, over the Taal region. PHIVOLCS said it has received reports of adverse effects on some residents of Talisay and Barangay Barigon, Agoncillo. Hazy conditions were also observed over Taal Lake and the towns surrounding it. PHIVOLCS suggested that the public must avoid outdoor activities and limit their exposure to VOG by wearing an N95 mask. Drink plenty of water to reduce throat irritation and seek medical help when needed. VOG is a type of air pollution caused by volcanoes. It consists of fine droplets containing volcanic gas such as sulfur dioxide, which is acidic and can cause irritation of the eyes, throat, and respiratory tract in severities depending on the gas concentrations and durations of exposure. PHIVOC said given high gas emissions, communities surrounding Taal Lake are advised to take necessary precautions.
Meanwhile, Indonesia's most active volcano, Mount Merapi, erupted last Monday, belching a cloud of ash into the air as red lava flowed down its crater. The early morning explosion spewed clouds as far as 3.5 kilometers from the rumbling volcano, blanketing local communities in gray ash. There were no evacuation orders or reports of casualties. Merapi, close to Indonesia's cultural capital Yogyakarta on Java Island, has been particularly active in recent months, and authorities raised its danger level late last year. Residents were told to avoid the area within a 5-kilometer radius of the rumbling volcano. Mount Merapi's last major eruption in 2010 killed more than 300 people and forced the evacuation of around 280,000 residents from surrounding areas. Now, that was its most powerful eruption since 1930, when around 1,300 people were killed, while another explosion in 1994 took about 60 lives. The Southeast Asian archipelago nation has nearly 130 active volcanoes. Indonesia experiences frequent seismic and volcanic activity due to its position on the Pacific Ring of Fire, where tectonic plates collide.
Malaysia's central bank slashed its economic growth forecast for this year on Friday after authorities imposed a new lockdown to fight a coronavirus surge driven by the highly contagious Delta variant. Citing the reimposition of curbs, the central bank slashed its full-year growth forecast to between 3.0 to 4.0%, down from 6.0 to 7.5% previously. However, Bank Negara added it expected a gradual recovery in the fourth quarter this year, with higher global growth and sustained policy support providing a further lift to economic growth. The new lockdown imposed in June has forced the closure of most businesses and dealt a heavy blow to an already teetering economy, but has so far had little success in blunting the virus surge.
Meanwhile, Thailand downgraded its economic growth forecast for 2021 as it battles its worst COVID wave, which has brought record numbers of new infections and deaths. The kingdom last year suffered its worst full-year performance since the Asian financial crisis of 1997, with a 6.1% economic contraction. The Office of the National Economic and Social Development Council, or NESDC, had initially given a cool forecast for recovery during the first quarter, estimating growth of 1.5 to 2.5% for 2021. But on Monday, NESDC Secretary General Danucha Pichayanan announced it had to revise that figure down to between 0.7 and 1.2%. He said this crisis caused by the pandemic is unlike the financial crisis of 1997 and 2009. And he said our estimation is based on domestic causes. Thailand's GDP for the second quarter was up 7.5% on the same period last year. The first sign of recovery since the pandemic. The growth was most visible in agricultural, industrial, and export sectors, while tourism, once Thailand's cash cow, remains sluggish. The kingdom has gradually reopened borders to vaccinated travelers via a quarantine-free program in ultra-popular beach resort, or beach island rather, of Phuket, drawing more than 34,700 tourists to its sun-soaked shores since the so-called sandbox launch on July 1. But COVID-19 cases there have also started to climb.
Still in Thailand, as the Bank of Thailand plans to test its retail digital currency for the public in the second quarter of 2022 as an alternative payment option, an assistant governor said on Thursday. The Retail Central Bank Digital Currency, or CBDC, will not affect monetary policy or money supply in the system. Vachera Aromdi told a news conference. The pilot project will evaluate the use of the CBDC in cash-like activities within a limited scale, such as accepting, converting, or paying for goods and services, she said. The Bank of Thailand predicts demands for the CBDC will gradually increase and that it could become an alternative payment option, partially substituting cash and e-money, it said in a statement.
Now, Google and Facebook on Monday unveiled plans for a new undersea internet cable connecting Singapore, Japan, Guam, the Philippines, Taiwan, and Indonesia. The cable project, dubbed Apricot, would be some 12,000 kilometers, nearly 7,500 miles, and be operational in 2024, subject to regulatory approvals, according to the companies in separate statements. The project, announced by the U.S. firms and regional and global partners, will deliver much-needed internet capacity, redundancy, and reliability to expand connections in the Asia-Pacific region, according to Facebook engineering manager Nico Rorich. Earlier this year, the companies announced another cable project, dubbed ECHO, connecting the United States, Singapore, Guam, and Indonesia. Google Cloud Vice President Bikash Kohli said the ECHO and Apricot cables are complementary submarine systems that will offer benefits with multiple paths in and out of Asia, including unique routes through Southern Asia, ensuring a significantly higher degree of resilience for Google Cloud and digital services. Kohli said together they will provide businesses and startups in Asia with lower latency, more bandwidth, and increased resilience in their connectivity between Southeast Asia, North Asia, and the United States. Google and Facebook this year halted efforts on a planned undersea cable that would have connected California and Hong Kong due to tensions between the United States and China. Last year, the U.S. Department of Justice recommended that the planned cable proposed by Google and Facebook bypass Hong Kong.
Meanwhile, despite challenges brought about by geopolitical realities and the COVID-19 pandemic, senior officials are positive that EU-ASEAN relations are bound to expand and flourish in the coming years. Let's take a look.
And welcoming the Philippines as the ASEAN coordinator for ASEAN-EU dialogue relations. The recent meeting of EU High Representative Vice President Josep Borrell with Foreign Secretary Locsin on 28 June 2021 was a reaffirmation of the importance of deepening the EU-ASEAN relations and the readiness for engagement in areas of mutual interest, including security cooperation. This is today's topic, and how we can work together with the Philippines in the coming 3 years to deepen our partnership. With the EU strategy for cooperation in the Indo-Pacific, we have underlined our interest to intensify our work to boost trade and investment, economic openness, and a sustainable approach to connectivity in the region. At the same time, we are determined to deepen our security engagement in and with Asia, for example, on maritime security and conflict prevention.
So from humble beginnings in 1977, ASEAN and EU, perhaps is the most successful example of regionalism in the world, are now strategic partners and key stakeholders in the rapidly evolving regional security architecture. The EU remains a very important trading partner of ASEAN. According to statistics, the EU is the second largest foreign investor in ASEAN and is ASEAN's third largest trading partner. In 2020, the EU's investment totaled $7.6 billion and total two-way trade stood at over $258 billion. This for ASEAN and the EU to strengthen both regions' preparedness for and capacity to respond effectively to current and future public health emergencies, including the fostering of innovation, research and development in science and technology, and allow to keep up for ASEAN to keep up with the fourth industrial revolution while preparing for post-pandemic recovery. ASEAN and EU strongly support vaccine multilateralism and the World Health Organization as the international community work together to ensure fair, equitable, and affordable access to safe and effective vaccines as global public goods. As such, we appreciate the EU's Team Europe package of over 800 million euro to combat the spread of the disease and mitigate its impact on the region. Next, as promoters of the importance of rules-based multilateral order, ASEAN-EU will continue to champion the respect for international law, including the 1982 UNCLOS. ASEAN and EU should continue to reaffirm the importance of maintaining and promoting peace, security, safety, and the right to freedom and navigation in and over flight above the South China Sea, as well as the peaceful resolution of disputes in accordance with international law, particularly the 1982 UNCLOS.
So when looking forward and as we embark on this new adventure with the Philippines as country coordinator, allow me to be a bit ambitious and formulate 3 priorities or wishes for the coming years. Priorities which largely coincide with the priorities Undersecretary has mentioned. Our first ambition is for the EU and ASEAN to conclude a stronger green partnership. The IPCC report, which was released a few days back, is absolutely terrifying and should be a wake-up call for all of us. And we, EU and ASEAN, have a keen interest to work together. We realize that due to rapid growth and in the absence of any significant decarbonization, energy-related greenhouse gas emissions in the ASEAN region might almost double by 2040. We also realize the importance of ASEAN's biodiversity and the need to protect it. We have several cooperation programs ongoing, including with the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity in the Philippines, but we need to up our ambition. Concretely, we think it's time for us to intensify and widen our cooperation on issues such as circular economy, clean oceans and sustainable food systems, to launch a clean energy dialogue, to upgrade our climate and environment dialogue to a ministerial level.
The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, formally launched on Friday a region-wide program that would ramp up restoration efforts and plant at least 10 million native trees in a span of 10 years. Called the ASEAN Green Initiative, the program will bring together different stakeholders to participate in an ambitious goal of planting at least 10 million native trees and regrow Southeast Asian forests. Let's take a look.
This landmark initiative for the ASEAN environment and ecosystem health germinated even before the pandemic began. It was envisaged by no less than His Excellency Kong Fook, whom I had the pleasure to meet with. We have the launching of this vision, the ASEAN Green Initiative, and this is even more crucial now as the region gears towards its long-term recovery from the ongoing health crisis. We thus deem it necessary to launch this now. The timing is also auspicious as we celebrate the 54th founding anniversary of the ASEAN on the 8th of August. All across the ASEAN, impressive feats of greening initiatives have already been started, already abound, such as Malaysia's 100 million trees planting campaign, Indonesia's 100 million trees for Borneo, and Singapore's 1 million trees, and the others you will hear more about later. We emphasize the use of tree species and vegetation that are native to an ecosystem, as they are more resilient and are better adapted to the climate, soil types, and other environmental factors, which will allow them to grow better. The region's lush forests, wetlands, and coastal and marine areas provide essential services to more than 650 million people in the ASEAN. minimizing environmental pressures while securing the socioeconomic condition of the people and the state are significant challenges that are surmountable through the robust cooperation among all key stakeholders.
And finally, in our news, Manny Pacquiao says a change of opponent has not affected his training as he attempts to reclaim his world welterweight crown after a 2-year absence from the ring on Saturday. The Filipino boxing icon faces WBA champion Yordenis Ugas at Las Vegas's T-Mobile Arena in a bout that was put together after his initial opponent, Errol Spence Jr., suffered an eye injury. The abrupt withdrawal of Spence, the unbeaten IBF and WBC champion, has deprived the 42-year-old Pacquiao of another super fight at the tail end of his glittering career. It also means Pacquiao, who has not fought since beating Keith Thurman for the WBA title in July 2019, has had to recalibrate his training to account for the fact that he will now be taking on a right-handed opponent rather than a southpaw. Pacquiao played down the impact of the tactical readjustment as he prepares for the 72nd fight of a professional career that began in 1995. Pacquiao was controversially stripped of his WBA title on grounds of inactivity earlier this year, despite the global disruption to boxing caused by the pandemic. The WBA instead handed the belt to Ugas, a fact that rankled Pacquiao. He said, and I quote, "I didn't like that someone took my belt without challenging me in the ring." Pacquiao said, "Both of us are champions, but we'll see who has the belt after Saturday." And as always, thank you very much, Crystal, for keeping me company today. You have a good and safe weekend ahead of you.
Likewise, Alma, and that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. I am Crystal Ann Ballesteros from your EBC Cambodia Bureau. Stay updated about the ASEAN region and we'll live in interesting times.
We'll see you back on Monday. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.